We're here in what passes for sunny western Washington. We're in Whatcom County, the most northwestern county in the state of Washington, between Linden and Everson. And we're visiting here with Rob Dollywall, a Washington red raspberry grower. Rob, can you tell us about your farm?
Sure. Well, we're a raspberry blueberry operation. We started farming here in Whatcom County in 1986, and we grow and process our own fruit here on the farm.
So, in addition to blueberry and raspberries, do you have currants, or are you in between currant crops?
No, we have currants as well. It's just a small patch of currants, just to fill a niche market.
All right, and about how many acres of raspberries do you have?
Currently, we farm about 250 acres.
And how many varieties? How many different types of raspberries do you have?
Right now, we have 4 different varieties we have in production. A couple of them are public varieties. A couple of them are proprietary.
All right, and do you go for the processed market or for a fresh market?
So 100% here in Whatcom County is grown for process. When you say process, that's either fresh, frozen IQF, or purees, sieve, jam, jelly, juices.
And you also, do you do case frozen in the industry?
We do IQF.
This IQF, okay. Now, raspberries, we're standing in one of your raspberry fields, and what variety is this?
So this is Skagit Premier. This is one of the newest releases from WSU.
All right, and it's July 1, and have you started harvesting?
Yes, we actually started last week. It's been rained out since this morning. Obviously, if we had sunshine, we'd be harvesting right now.
All right, and how many days a week do you harvest?
7 days.
And how long does harvest last?
Raspberry harvest, we started last week. That's about the 25th of June, and we'll pick till about August 5th or 6th.
And you could, if you were here, you could just pull one of these off and eat it like this.
Yeah, they're tasty.
Those taste almost as good as a blueberry.
So everything is mechanically harvested. It's difficult to do fine hand labor, and for the process market, just the way the market is structured and pricing and so forth, we can't really afford to use hand labor to harvest the crop. It's a machine not quite as aggressive as a grape harvester, but it does straddle the row, shakes the bushes, and the ripe fruit falls off.
You're in this field harvesting every 2.5 days. And so if someone is registering a pesticide, having a short pre-harvest interval will be important. So are you applying pesticides right now during harvest time?
We did apply one pre-harvest. That was maybe as what we call a cleanup, referred to as cleanup spray, because we were mechanically harvesting. It will, the harvester will shake a lot of the bugs and the insects off, which become food contaminants. So we do put on a pre-harvest pesticide, and then that usually gives us a good 10 to 14 days of control. And in between harvests, we will have to go in occasionally, depending on what issues we have. SWD is a big issue, spotted wing Drosophila. So those are usually regular sprays, every 10 days or so.
Okay. Do you have what kind of disease problems do you have?
Well, obviously, if you can't tell from the rain, botrytis is a big one. And cane blight is also one that, because again, the harvester causes scarring and so forth of the plants as it passes through that many times. So, the plants do suffer some injury.
Cane blight, you got botrytis, and I believe you also have root rot?
Yes.
So that's a Phytophthora?
Yes, Phytophthora root rotted, and again, due to this lovely weather we're having today.
Yeah. All right, are nematodes a problem?
They can be. They vary field to field, and some varieties seem to be a little bit more resilient to handling higher pressures. Others don't do so well.
What are some of your important fungicides that you use?
Currently, in our program, we have Switch, Luna Tranquility, Pristine, We did have a Kenja label up until about June 22nd, so we did not get the ability to use that. Red mill
and elevate, iprodione. All right,
Captain.
Okay, Captain. How many fungicide applications would you make in a typical year?
Normally pre-harvest, usually about 4.
Okay.
And then they're depending on how the rain and the weather and the crop is progressing. We might go in with a 5th one in the middle of harvest.
Okay. And what are some of your spot-weed or software insecticides that you use?
It depends on the market. Where we're shipping the fruit currently, most of my product is going domestic, some to Canada. So we can't use the zeta-cypermethrin. We do use malathion, metapulprid.
Okay.
Daventol is another one.
All right. So you pay attention to where your fruit goes, and if your fruit goes to certain markets, that might influence what products you use. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So your maximum residue limits vary for every country, and especially I export a little bit more blueberries than we do with raspberries. So based on, we can isolate certain fields and just pick those markets based on what the MRLs are for those.
So the MRLs, or maximum residue limits, are the limits of pesticide residue that can be on the fruit that would be accepted by a country. And so, for example, if you're sending raspberries just over the border to Canada, you might restrict your use of Captan because they have a lower tolerance for that product.
Yeah, exactly. And zeta-cypermethrin is another one, another insecticide that they don't allow over there. So everyone varies a little bit.
All right. We're going to have another gentleman join us. Henry, can you join us and introduce yourself?
I'm Henry Beerlink with the Red Raspberry Commission. I've been working with Rob for 20 years now. Not long already.
And what do you do for the Red Raspberry Commission?
Same thing you do for the Blueberry Commission. Just do whatever they tell you.
All right, so you're the executive director of that. Could you give us a little overview of the Washington Red Raspberry industry?
Well, it's a pretty specialized industry, and it is really uniquely focused up here in the northwest corner of Washington State. It is there's about 8,000, 9,000 acres of raspberries planted in this little area, and Linden is just about 5 miles north of here. That is sort of the epicenter of the raspberry industry. If we draw a circle about 30-mile radius around Linden, it includes a little bit of the lower mainland of BC. About 90-some% of the frozen raspberries in this country, in North America, are grown within that little circle.
Okay, so there's no fresh raspberries growing around here?
It's just a little bit of fresh market stand stuff, and it's usually about less than 1%, or less than 0.1% of the production that goes into fresh.
So, do you cover black raspberries?
We don't grow them in this particular area. There's a little bit in the Willamette Valley.
What about blackberry?
Also, pretty much in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, and not much in the state of Washington. A little bit in southwest Washington.
So
we don't do that.
So in the state of Washington, raspberries are almost all processed and they're almost all ready.
That's correct.
All right. And what percent is frozen versus not frozen on the process side?
Well, everything gets frozen eventually, right?
Yes.
So the flash frozen is about 30-40%, goes into the high quality individual quick frozen. The next variety would be the purees or the straight pack, which is probably another 30%, and then the 20-30% are in the juice concentrate area.
I've been told that that the specifications for quality, or the quality standards for fresh is higher than for processed, but it seems to me the quality standards and the expectations that are put on the growers for this IQF raspberries is pretty high.
I would agree. I can see a discernible difference. In fact, it may be even higher quality in terms of its ability to. A lot of the fresh market, often you have people that are picking for shippability. Be able to, it's going to ripen on the way off. The big important thing in fresh market predominantly is being able to handle that fruit for a few days or weeks before it actually starts to rot. whereas we pick the peak of ripeness right into the freezer within several hours, right off the
And
vine.
I can tell you for myself on our own farm, you know, we do fresh blueberries as well as frozen blueberries, and essentially their production practices and so forth are almost identical.
So, how typical is this kind of weather for, or is this unusual weather, or is this typical weather for raspberry harvest?
It's not typical, but we get it about every other 3 years. We're going to get a little spell, some rain. There aren't many years you're going to get without any rain at all. We've had a couple in the last 2 years, some really nice stretches. But we are often going to have a little bit of liquid precipitation, a little liquid irrigation.
So, this weather is perfect conditions for disease, particularly botrytis or gray mold. And I know from my experience working in this area that there'll be 4 to 8 applications of fungicides made for botrytis during the growing season. And as a result of this, we know because the genetics of botrytis, it's developed resistance to a lot of fungicides. We have resistance been detected to cefprodiol, which is in switch, to boscalid, which is in pristine, vinheximid, which is in elevate, and iprodione. So 5 of the 6 main products, the other one, Captan, we've developed, resistance has been developed to. I'm doing some work with the Washington Red Raspberry Commission at Washington State University and bringing on some new products. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the new products coming on are in FRAC Group 7, which is the same group as boscalid, to which we already have resistance to. And so one of the big concerns we have is we need some new modes of action. Right now, the Washington Red Raspberry Commission and Washington State University has developed some pretty involved resistance management or integrated resistance management program to manage botrytis that has resistance to most of the modes of action. We've gone into fields and we have typed the kind of resistance, and so often for many of the fields we know exactly what products are the fungicide resistant to, and then we can design programs specifically for that field. So question, Rob, what do you do for your resistance management program for botrytis?
It's just rotating, you know, as you mentioned, mainly most stuff coming on now is group 7 fungicides, so, you know, keeping a rotation of different groups of activity. And I mean, at this point, that's really all you can do. We can't manage this liquid sunshine. So, you know, and having limitations and when it comes to resistance and other products coming on the line because they're involved in the same group.
One of the characteristics of the Washington Red Raspberry industry is the demand for super high quality premium fruit. You don't get that with a lot of research and a lot of figuring out how to do it. So how has your industry got to that point?
It's been a long history with the Raspberry Commission. It's been investing in good, solid research, and fortunately we've had pretty good support from Washington State University. We also, with the United States Department of Agriculture, the ARS division based out of Corvallis, which covers this area. And we also work a lot with Ag Canada because we're all in the same sort of geographic area dealing with some of the same issues. And then we've also brought in a couple of the private researchers as well, like Mr. Schreiber with his research division. So all of them working together really well is just a crucial part of what we do. And we invest a fair amount of money in that. And without that kind of asset, I don't believe that this industry would be surviving the way it has.
In the last few years, would it be typical for your industry to put up to $250,000 into research?
Yes, we're in that neighborhood, usually between $200,000 and $300,000 probably, where we're into some sort of research, including plant breeding.
And so what are the areas that you fund research in?
Plant breeding, pathology, entomology, weed control, what else was that?
Horticulture.
Horticultural
Plant
issues.
breeding.
And plant breeding is a big part of it. We're looking at new genetics and so forth, looking at how we're going to survive and stay ahead of other parts of the world.
This is one of the varieties.
It is one of the more recent releases. In fact,
From
most
Washington
recent
State
release.
University.
Correct.
And that was a program, that's your single biggest line item.
It is.
And you've been, that's been your single biggest line item for how long?
Since the inception of the Raspberry Commission, which is about 35 years ago.
Okay.